Hello everyone, welcome to Redbust US channel. In this video, we'll look at the lawsuit that was filed in court regarding the change in wage levels for H1B and PERM. We'll review what are the key argument points and what's the decision requested. So here are the topics that we'll cover in the article, reasoning of why and other aspects that we just saw. So here is the actual lawsuit that was filed. As you can see, it was filed in US District Court of New Jersey, and it was filed on 16th of October. And here is a snapshot of actually the case document, right? Now, why is the lawsuit filed? This is just for the background of everybody. As many of you know, the prevailing wage levels for H1B and PERM were, increased significantly, and they were from 17, 34, 50, and 67 in the past in terms of percentiles, and now they basically increased the level 1 to 45th percentile. So technically what it means is the wage that you have to pay for an entry level worker right now is almost like the level, or like about similar to the wage level 3 worker, which is about close to 45th percentile, right? I mean, these are big changes. We look at why they are pretty high. So here is an example of how the wage level change impacts. So this is from H1B Grader website. They have a beautiful comparison feature. So if you put in the OES title, so as you can see in the New York thing, you can see that for 15 and 1133 SOC code, which is software developers, for level 1 wage, it actually increased 47% more, and for level 2 it's about 49%, level 3 50%, level 4 51%. So technically if you are in in New Jersey and getting paid 78k as the prevailing wage for level 1, now your employer has to pay you 116k just as the minimum wage, for that, that's a 47% increase. So this is a big burden on the companies. So that's the reason they're going to court. This is a general distribution of H1B wage levels by H1B Grader. What they say is, based on distributions, as you can see, the level 1, 2 itself for FY 2019, it's close to 400k people, So, I mean, there's a significant amount of people that could be impacted with this, or it's probably higher, right? But at the minimum, level 1 and level 2 wages are really impacted and hit very hard. Now, it's a big 36-page document, the lawsuit, case document. What they initially cover is all the details of the basics of the case. So, for your information, the case is officially called as IT Serve Alliance, ETL versus Scalia, and this filed by IT Serve Alliance team. IT Serve is an organization that is managed by a group. It's essentially a group of IT services and staffing companies that have formed this organization, and they actually have started this, and it's represented by Wasden and Bunny as a law firm. So they're pretty reputed because they won something, a very big case in this year that threw like a 10-year-old memos as well. Yeah. So now in terms of impact, what they say is usually when you look at IT services contracts, they're in the long-term contracts for some of them. Some of them are short, some of them are long, but strategic contracts are pretty long, and when they bid for pricing, they would take into consideration the H1B workers' wages. Now suddenly having this wage level changes without proper notice and comment period is actually a significant burden for these companies, because they cannot go back and change these contracts. So what they're expecting is because there was no time for them to even give the information to DOL to consider before they publish the rule, so they'll be forced to even do layoffs, or move the jobs to offshore, and it can impact the overall economy. So this is what they say. And in terms of the impact, right, so they say that computer wages are going to increase significantly, close to 50%. So they list out few of these companies that are part of the IT Serve group. So Precision Technologies about 50%, iFlow Solutions about 24.5%, SmartWork about 49%, so NAM about 50%, Colosoft 26%, Dot Technologies about 30%, right? And again, this is just a snapshot of some of the companies that are actually part of the litigation, but IT Serve says that they're just representing a few of them, or putting them few of them just to get an idea, but they're representing basically the entire IT services companies, and all of them will be impacted. So it is a snapshot of what they put it in the court document, telling that how they've changed. So this is essentially same that we just showed, where you see the comparison on H1B Grader. So it's exactly the same thing. Yeah. Now that I mean, this is actually a screenshot of what we see in the court documents. See, as you can see, read the text, right? ITSO members are unable to absorb without material disruption to their operations. Yeah. So I'll let you read this screenshot. We'll provide a link to the article where you can look at the document as well in detail. Now, in terms of key argument points, they divide the entire article, they divide the entire case based on three fundamental or three counts, they call them, right? So the count one, is basically violation of notice and comment process for rulemaking. So this is an important one for any rulemaking, because you need to go through all the 9 steps. So what they say is that DOL did not follow the proper rulemaking process, and they did not give a chance for public to give feedback. Because if they were to give feedback, everyone would have given that, telling that they're going to have impact and they should reconsider their decision. Now, under the justification that DOL is giving is not really proper, basically, for fast tracking this process, telling that jobs are lost and unemployment, all of this, while the unemployment is actually low, right? So they say that all the justifications given by Department of Labor in the regulation are factually wrong, and so they are using outdated information, incorrect information for computing wage levels, which is also a significant thing, because it gives wrong levels, right? So that's the reason. And they did not consider any empirical studies or reports. That's what they say, essentially verified reports, and many of the things that are in the regulation are against basic economic theory. So this is the first count, that the major argument point that they base on. So the second count is telling that it's a statutory requirement. Statute is basically something that Congress passes, and you have to stick to that, right? So as per that, H1B only requires a bachelor's degree, and DOL says the L1 level 1 prevailing wage levels are upwards from master degrees, and they used master degree as the benchmark for entry level positions. And they use some flawed logic in that, telling that okay, this is actually in the rule, right? They say that okay, this is going to be used for perm as well, and there are more people need to quota and all of that. They use a very confusing kind of an argument, and try to justify that. But basically, fundamentally, the flaw is H1B special occupation only requires a bachelor's degree, and now they're saying as a minimum, and now the wage levels are based on a master's degree benchmark, which is fundamentally wrong. So that's what they're arguing, and setting the wage level to 45th percentile for level 1 based on this is inconsistent with statute. So this is actually a big violation if you look at it, because it's inconsistent with the fundamental definition set by Congress. The third section, or the third count that they go against is or they bring up is DOL action is capricious and arbitrary, which is nothing translates to random and not based on any logic, right? I mean, that's a legal term that they use. But their reasoning is, fundamentally what they say in the rule is that H1B workers are paid less and than US workers, but they do not provide proper credible reports. So this is wrong. That's what they say. And they also say that they did not consider any verified reports based on real data, and they falsely assume that H1B workers are paid less than US workers. This is also false assumption as per the argument that they say. And they also say that DOL did not consider the reports that say how H1B workers employment is creating jobs and creating wage growth, including investment opportunities for in R&D as well. Also, they say that they did not consider any reports that show adverse effects of not having H1B workers, right? The logic is, if there is no skilled, high skilled workers, it can impact the US economy, and there could be job loss, even offshoring of the jobs, because there are no people to fill those. So that's the logic they're using. And the unemployment rate is actually relatively very low compared to the general unemployment rate, and DOL using the logic of pushing this through without proper process for using unemployment and COVID is really not logical. So that's what they say. So if you look at the entire argument, these are the three primary things that it's based on. Rest of the other things are all background and rules and all of that, right? Now, what the decision they're asking is, ITServe is asking the court is for preliminary injunction, essentially to stop what is happening now and continue to and then go for trial, basically to look at the merits of this case. Second one is they're asking, okay, you can permanently stop DOL from implementing this, right? So, most of the times the second one doesn't happen. Usually they only get preliminary injunction because they want to look at the merits of the case, right? So this is the actual prayer for relief, they call it in the court document. So they say that, okay, I mean, you can read the text, right? But the last E section tells preliminarily and permanently enjoining DOL from implementing, applying, or enforcing the interim final rule, blah blah blah, right? So enjoining is a technical term, essentially telling them to stop, or hold on to this, right? So this is what they're asking in terms of decision from the court ITServe. Now, if we look at the overall conclusion, right? I mean, based on this thing, right? So the argument points are they raised are pretty strong, I mean, frankly, because DOL does not have enough ammunition or justifications for why did they even do this, skipping this without proper comments, because the estimated costs or is actually in hundreds of billions of dollars, right? So that's what they actually have it in the court argument as well. So this is such a significant rule, and having this without proper comment period is a big one. And second one is impact to businesses. This is something courts would really heavily weigh in, because nobody wants to businesses to be in loss because of some random capricious rule that has been put up without proper due diligence, right? So this is also something that they would weigh in. But as per Wasden and Banias, the law firm that actually put this out, they said that DOL has done a very big mistake, and there are many procedural defects, and they're confident that they will get the injunction for the same. So again, we have to see what will come out of it. But again, it's pretty strong argument points that they put out. Again, there are 2 more lawsuits that are in work by other law firms. So we'll keep you all posted how those come along. But otherwise, this is what the summary of the entire thing. Hopefully, it was helpful. Thank you again for watching. Do subscribe for getting regular updates.